Have you ever met someone so forgotten that even the world stopped noticing her? Ilara was that woman. Ignored by her pack, overlooked by her people, and surviving one lonely day at a time. Then after a violent storm she found something that could change her life forever. The Alpha King's lost pendant. A treasure worth more than everything she owned. She could have kept it. No one would have known. But when she chose honesty over survival and returned it, what happened next stunned the entire pack. Because the Alpha King did not look at her like a stranger. He looked at her like someone he had been searching for all along. The day Ilara found the Alpha King's lost pendant began like most days in her life. Quiet, cold, and unnoticed. Before the sun had fully climbed above the distant hills, she was already awake, carrying buckets of water across the village paths, while other homes still held the warmth of sleep. People passed her. Some nodded. Most did not. No one was cruel. Not anymore. Cruelty left scars that could be seen. What she carried was something different. Something softer and somehow heavier. She was forgotten. And being forgotten hurt in ways few people understood. Years earlier she had believed her life would become something more. She had trusted people, loved people, waited for them. But one by one they had walked away. Not because she had done something terrible. Not because she had failed. Simply because she had never been important enough to stay for. The lesson had settled deep inside her heart. Some people were chosen. Others were merely present. Ilara had learned to be present. Nothing more. Yet somehow kindness still remained inside her. Like a small candle refusing to die. Even when the wind never stopped blowing. That morning she delivered herbs to an elderly widow who could barely walk. The old woman smiled and pressed a piece of bread into her hands. It was hard and slightly stale. But Ilara accepted it as if it were a feast. "Thank you, child," the woman whispered. "You always remember me." Ilara smiled gently. "Someone should." The woman squeezed her hand. And for a moment Ilara felt seen. Only for a moment. Then the feeling passed. By midday the village had become restless. Wolves moved quickly through the streets. Guards spoke in low voices. Groups gathered together sharing rumors. Everywhere Ilara looked people seemed nervous. She finally overheard two hunters speaking near the market. "The Alpha King's pendant is missing." The silver one. The one he always wears." The hunter nodded. "They have been searching since dawn. No one knows where it went." The word spread through the village like fire through dry grass. Everyone knew the pendant. Even children recognized it. It was more than jewelry. It was part of the Alpha King himself. People said he had worn it for years. People said it carried memories. Some even claimed it held blessings from ancestors. The rumors grew larger with every telling. Ilara listened quietly before returning to her work. The Alpha King lived far above her world. His problems belonged to another life, not hers. By late afternoon dark clouds gathered across the sky. A storm had passed during the night, leaving parts of the forest soaked and scattered with broken branches. Ilara had been sent to gather herbs growing near a stream beyond the village border. It was peaceful there. The kind of place where silence felt gentle instead of lonely. She knelt beside the water-collecting plants carefully. Then something caught her eye. A faint silver glimmer beneath wet leaves. First she thought it was a coin. Nothing more. But when she brushed away the mud, her breath stopped. The pendant rested in her palm. Heavy, cold, beautiful. The symbol engraved on its surface was unmistakable. The mark of the Alpha King. For several seconds she simply stared. The forest around her seemed to disappear. This cannot be real. Her fingers tightened around the chain. She looked around instinctively. No one was there. Only trees, wind, and distant birds. The pendant felt strangely warm despite the cold air. 1,000 thoughts rushed through her mind. She could turn it in immediately. She could leave it where it was. She could hide it. No one had seen her find it. No one would know. A painful thought appeared before she could stop it. The pendant was worth more than everything she owned. More than her small room. More than her clothing. More than months of work. Perhaps years. For the first time in a very long time, opportunity stood directly in front of her. Not kindness, not hope, not patience. Opportunity, a chance to choose herself. The thought frightened her, because part of her wanted it. Part of her was tired. Tired of struggling. Tired of giving. Tired of always doing the right thing while life offered so little in return. She sat beside the stream holding the pendant. The water moved slowly around stones polished by countless seasons. And suddenly she remembered something her mother used to say. The world does not decide who you are. Your choices do. The memory hurt. Her mother had been gone many years. Yet the words remained. Ilara lowered her eyes. If she kept the pendant, perhaps her life would become easier. But every morning afterward she would remember how she got it. Every quiet moment would carry that weight. The relief would never feel clean. Slowly she released a long breath. Then she stood. The decision was made. Not because it benefited her. Not because anyone would reward her. Because she needed to remain herself. Even if the world forgot her name. The journey back to the village felt longer than usual. By the time she arrived, guards were searching everywhere. Questions echoed through the streets. People whispered nervously. The missing pendant had become the only thing anyone wanted to discuss. Ilara moved through the crowd, clutching the chain beneath her cloak. Her heart beat faster with every step. She disliked attention. Yet soon every eye might turn toward her. At the center of the village stood the Alpha King, Phil, surrounded by guards. He looked exactly as stories described. Powerful without trying to appear powerful. Calm despite the chaos around him. People respected him because they trusted him, not because they feared him. Ilara hesitated. Just one moment. Then she stepped forward. "Excuse me." Her voice nearly vanished beneath the noise. No one listened. She tried again. "Excuse me." A guard turned first. Then another. Soon several eyes settled on her. The crowd grew quieter. Ilara felt her stomach twist. She hated this. Hated standing where everyone could see her. But she forced herself onward. Slowly she reached into her cloak. Gasps spread through the crowd. Silver flashed beneath the fading sunlight. The pendant rested in her open hand. "I found this near the stream," she said softly. For a heartbeat the entire village became silent. The Alpha King's gaze lifted and locked onto hers. Ilara expected relief. Perhaps gratitude. Perhaps a simple nod. Nothing more. Instead something unexpected crossed his face. Not anger. Not surprise. Something deeper. Something that made the crowd immediately uneasy. The Alpha King took one slow step forward. Then another. His eyes never left hers. And suddenly every person standing there realized this was not merely a lost pendant. It meant something far more. Something none of them understood. And as silence settled over the village, Ilara felt fate quietly shift beneath her feet. Though she had no idea yet how completely her life was about to change. The silence remained long after Ilara placed the pendant into the Alpha King's hand. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The silver chain rested against his palm while the crowd watched with growing uncertainty. Ilara wished she could disappear. That feeling was familiar. For years she had survived by staying unnoticed. Now dozens of eyes followed her every movement. It made her uncomfortable. The Alpha King lowered his gaze to the pendant. For a moment something softened inside his expression. A quiet sadness. Memory. A grief he rarely allowed anyone to see. Then he carefully closed his fingers around the chain. "Thank you." His voice was calm. Sincere. The words were simple. Yet they carried a weight that surprised everyone. Including Ilara. She nodded once. Nothing more. Then stepped back into the crowd. She expected the moment to end there. She expected life to return to normal. But fate had already chosen a different path. As people slowly dispersed, whispers immediately began spreading through the village. Some wondered how she found the pendant. Others questioned why she had been alone near the stream. A few simply refused to believe someone would return something so valuable without expecting a reward. Ilara heard fragments of those conversations as she walked home. Each whisper followed her like a shadow. She tried to ignore them. She had done the right thing. That should have been enough. Yet the uneasy feeling in her chest refused to disappear. The next morning the village felt different. Not openly hostile. Not welcoming either. Just different. People looked at her longer than before. Some smiled politely. Others exchanged suspicious glances when they thought she was not looking. Ilara focused on her work. She cleaned storage rooms, delivered supplies, gathered herbs, anything to keep her thoughts occupied. Near midday she was sent toward the northern edge of the territory where wild healing plants grew beneath ancient pines. The forest there was quieter than most places. Few wolves traveled that far, especially after recent storms. The ground remained damp beneath her boots. Broken branches covered parts of the path. Sunlight slipped through the trees in narrow beams of gold. For a while only birdsong accompanied her journey. Then she heard something else. A sound so faint she almost missed it. Small cry. Weak. Trembling. Afraid. Ilara stopped walking. The sound came again. Somewhere ahead. She pushed through thick bushes and followed it carefully. The cry grew louder. Then she found the source. A small cub sat beneath a fallen tree. Alone. His fur was muddy. One leg twisted awkwardly beneath him. Tears streaked his cheeks. The moment he saw her he tried to move away. Fear filled his wide eyes. Please do not hurt me. The words barely escaped his lips. Ilara immediately knelt several steps away. Far enough not to frighten him. Close enough to help. I will not hurt you. Her voice remained soft. The cub stared at her uncertainly. Where are your parents? His eyes lowered. The answer arrived before he spoke. Gun. The single word broke her heart. Many children had lost family during past conflicts and harsh winters. But hearing it never became easier. Ilara looked at the injured leg. The swelling was obvious. Walking would be painful. Perhaps impossible. You are hurt. The cub nodded silently. Have you been here long? Since morning. His voice shook. No one came. The words settled heavily between them. No one came. Ilara understood that feeling better than most. She slowly removed a water flask from her bag. Would you like some water? The cub hesitated before accepting. His hands trembled as he drank. When he finished she carefully examined his injury. Nothing appeared broken. But the sprain was serious. He would need rest, medicine, and protection. The nearest healer lived far away. Taking him there would consume the rest of the day. Perhaps longer. Ilara closed her eyes briefly. Trouble already followed her after finding the pendant. People watched her more closely now. If she disappeared with an unknown cub, questions would grow even louder. Yet when she looked into the frightened child's face, the choice became impossible to ignore. He needed help. That was all that mattered. Can you tell me your name? The cub swallowed. Finn. A small smile touched her lips. Hello, Finn. My name is Ilara. The child studied her carefully, almost as if deciding whether trust was safe. Finally he asked a question. Will you leave too? The words struck deeper than he realized. Ilara shook her head. Well, not today. Relief appeared instantly inside his eyes. Fragile, but real. And something inside her heart shifted. An hour later she had created a temporary splint using branches and cloth from her own cloak. She lifted Finn carefully onto her back. The journey home became slow. Painfully slow. Several times she nearly lost balance crossing muddy paths. Yet she never complained. Finn remained quiet for most of the trip. Eventually his voice appeared near her ear. Why did you help me? The question surprised her. Because you needed help. That is all. He seemed confused by the answer. As if kindness without conditions was unfamiliar. The realization hurt more than she expected. By evening she reached a small abandoned cabin near the edge of the village. It was not much, but it offered shelter. She cleaned the wound, prepared herbs. shared her remaining food. Every resource she possessed seemed to disappear within hours. Yet when Finn finally smiled for the first time, she felt no regret. Night settled across the territory. Rain tapped gently against the roof. The cub slept beneath a blanket while Ilara sat near the window. Exhaustion weighed heavily on her shoulders. That was when voices drifted from outside. She recognized them immediately. Villagers, passing nearby, speaking in hushed tones. Maybe she found the pendant because she stole it. I heard she was near the stream before anyone else. Too convenient if you ask me. Perhaps she returned it because she feared being caught. Their laughter faded into the darkness. But the damage remained. Ilara lowered her eyes. The words should not have hurt. She knew the truth. Yet loneliness made every accusation heavier. For a moment she allowed herself to feel the sadness. Then a small hand touched her sleeve. He turned. Finn was awake. His sleepy eyes searched her face. Are you sad? Ilara forced a gentle smile. Just tired. The cub studied her quietly. Children often notice things adults ignored. After several seconds he scooted closer. Then rested his head against her shoulder. You helped me. His voice was barely above a whisper. I think good people get sad too. Ilara felt tears threaten to appear. She blinked them away. Perhaps. The room became silent, warm, peaceful. Outside the world remained full of rumors, questions, suspicion. Inside the cabin there was only the sound of rain, and the steady breathing of a child who no longer felt completely alone. But beyond those fragile walls trouble continued growing. Several villagers had already reported seeing Ilara near the place where the pendant disappeared. Others questioned why she now hid herself away with an unknown cub. Stories began twisting, changing shape, taking on lives of their own. And somewhere within the Alpha King's territory, eyes had started watching her movements more carefully than ever before. Ilara knew nothing about that. She only knew a frightened child needed protection. And she would not abandon him. Not even if it cost her the little reputation she still possessed. As midnight approached, she checked the hidden pouch beneath her cloak one final time. Her breath caught. For a moment confusion filled her mind. Then realization followed. The pendant was gone because she had already returned it. Yet somehow the fear remained. A feeling she could not explain. As if the real danger had never been about the pendant. As if something much larger was approaching. Outside the wind began to rise once more. The trees swayed. The clouds thickened. And far beyond the village dark storm clouds slowly gathered across the horizon, bringing with them a night that would soon change everything for both Ilara and the small cub sleeping beside her. The storm arrived before dawn. Not slowly, not gently. It came like a living thing racing across the mountains. The sky turned dark long before sunrise. Clouds swallowed the horizon. Wind rushed through the forest with a sound that felt almost alive. Inside the small cabin, Ilara woke instantly. The walls creaked beneath powerful gusts. Rain hammered against the roof. The air itself seemed restless. For a moment she sat quietly listening. Something felt wrong. Not ordinary storm wrong. Something deeper. Something that made her heart beat faster. Across the room, Finn remained asleep beneath his blanket. His face looked peaceful for the first time since she had found him. The sight brought a small smile to her lips. Children deserved peaceful sleep. Especially children who had already lost too much. She rose carefully and moved toward the window. Outside the world had vanished beneath sheets of rain. Trees bent beneath the force of the wind. Branches flew through the air. Thunder rolled across the mountains like distant drums. A dangerous storm. Far worse than anyone expected. Ilara gathered more wood for the fire, prepared warm tea, and hoped the weather would pass quickly. Hours slipped by. The storm only grew stronger. By midday the forest looked almost unrecognizable. Paths had disappeared beneath mud. Small streams had transformed into raging currents. The entire territory seemed trapped beneath endless rain. Finn sat beside the fire watching the flames. Are storms always this bad? Ilara shook her head. Not usually. The cub looked nervous. Will the cabin break? She moved closer and rested a hand on his shoulder. Well, we will be all right. The words sounded confident. Yet uncertainty lingered inside her chest. Suddenly a loud crack echoed through the forest. Both of them jumped. Another followed. Then another. Trees were beginning to fall. The sound carried through the storm like distant explosions. Finn moved closer, instinctively seeking safety. Ilara wrapped a blanket around him. Stay near me. The cub nodded. Hours later the rain finally weakened. Not enough to end the storm, but enough for visibility to return. Ilara stepped outside briefly to inspect the area. The sight stole her breath. Broken branches covered the ground. Several trees had collapsed. Part of the nearby path had disappeared beneath floodwater. The storm had reshaped the forest. She quickly returned inside. The danger had not passed. It had merely changed. As evening approached, Finn appeared restless. The small cabin suddenly felt too confined, too quiet, too full of waiting. Can I help gather wood? His voice carried determination. Ilara almost laughed. The cub could barely walk properly a day earlier. Your leg still needs rest. Feels better. That may be true. But the answer is still no. Finn crossed his arms dramatically. For the first time she saw something resembling childhood stubbornness. A normal behavior. A healthy behavior. It made her strangely happy. The storm continued throughout the evening. Then shortly before sunset everything became eerily calm. No wind. No thunder. No rain. Only silence. The sudden stillness felt unnatural. Ilara stepped outside again. The sky remained dark. Heavy clouds stretched endlessly overhead. Something was coming. She could feel it. Second wave. Perhaps worse than the first. That feeling proved correct. Moments later the wind returned. Stronger. Faster. More violent than before. The forest erupted with noise. Trees groaned. Branches snapped. Leaves filled the air. Ilara rushed back inside. Finn, stay away from the windows. The cub immediately obeyed. Fear filled his face. Another deafening crack echoed nearby. Then another. The storm was directly above them now. For nearly an hour they remained inside listening to nature unleash its fury. Then disaster struck. A terrible crashing sound exploded outside, followed by a cry. Child's cry. Ilara froze. Finn heard it too. Someone is out there. His eyes widened. Another cry followed. Then silence. Ilara rushed toward the door. Whoa. Finn grabbed her sleeve. It's dangerous. No. Then don't go. The fear in his voice nearly stopped her. Nearly. But not completely. Because somewhere beyond the storm another child needed help. And she already knew what would happen if nobody came. No one came. Those words returned to her memory. The same words Finn had spoken. She could not ignore them. Stay inside. Lock the door. I will be back. Promise. She looked into his frightened eyes. Promise. Then she stepped into the storm. The wind hit immediately. Cold. Violent. Relentless. Rain lashed against her face. Mud pulled at her boots. Every step became a struggle. She followed the direction of the cry. Branches whipped through the air. Thunder shook the ground. Visibility disappeared beneath darkness and rain. Yet she kept moving. Again she heard it. Faint. Desperate. Help. The voice came from deeper within the forest. Ilara forced herself forward. Her heart pounded. Fear whispered that she should turn back. Fear reminded her nobody would blame her for staying safe. But fear lost. Kindness won again. Minutes later she found the source. A young wolf child trapped beneath a fallen tree branch. Not Finn. Another child. Even younger. Terrified. Crying. Unable to move. The branch pinned one side of his body against the ground. Rain poured down relentlessly. The child looked up as she approached. Please, help me. Ilara immediately knelt beside him. It's all right. I'm here. The branch was enormous. Far heavier than she expected. Lifting it alone seemed impossible. Yet leaving was not an option. She planted her feet firmly into the mud, wrapped both hands around the wood, and pushed. Nothing happened. The branch refused to move. Pain shot through her arms. The storm roared around them. Again she pushed. Again. Slowly. Painfully. The branch shifted. Only slightly. But enough. The child cried out as space appeared beneath him. One more time. Ilara gathered every remaining ounce of strength. Then lifted with everything she had. A sharp pain exploded through her shoulder. The world blurred. Yet the branch moved. Just enough. The child crawled free. Immediately Ilara grabbed him. Can you stand? He nodded shakily. Good. Run toward the village. Find the guards. Do not stop. What about you? Oh. The child disappeared into the storm. Ilara remained behind, struggling to breathe. Her shoulder burned. Her muscles trembled uncontrollably. But relief filled her chest. The child was safe. Then another horrifying realization struck. Finn. She spun toward the cabin. And her blood turned cold. Smoke. Dark smoke rising through the storm. Directly from the direction of the cabin. Whoa. The word escaped her lips instantly. Panic exploded inside her chest. Ignoring her injuries, she ran. Branches tore at her clothes. Mud splashed beneath her feet. Rain blinded her vision. Yet she kept moving. Faster. Faster. Please be safe. Please. The cabin finally appeared through the storm. Part of the roof had collapsed. A massive tree rested against one side of the structure. Smoke drifted upward. Ilara rushed forward. Finn. No answer. Her heart nearly stopped. Finn. Still nothing. She reached the damaged doorway. Then heard a faint voice. Help. Relief and terror arrived together. The cub was alive. But trapped. Ilara forced her way inside. Broken wood covered the floor. Part of the ceiling had collapsed. A support beam pinned Finn near the far wall. The cub's face was streaked with tears. Ilara. Can't move. It's all right. I'm here. Fear filled his eyes. I knew you would come. The words shattered something inside her. Because he believed in her completely. Without question. Without doubt. And she could not fail him. Not now. She moved toward the beam. The structure groaned dangerously. Every second mattered. The cabin could collapse completely at any moment. Ilara wrapped her hands around the heavy wood. Pain screamed through her injured shoulder. Her body was already exhausted. Already damaged. Already beyond its limits. Yet limits no longer mattered. Only Finn mattered. She pulled. Nothing. Again. The beam shifted slightly. The cabin groaned louder. Dust rained from above. Again. Her vision blurred. Her arms shook violently. Still she refused to stop. Finn reached toward her. You can leave me. The words broke her heart. Well, never. With one final desperate effort she lifted. The beam rose. Just enough. Move. Finn crawled free instantly. The moment he cleared the danger, Ilara released the beam. Crashed back down. The cabin shook violently. Run outside. Finn hesitated. Oh. The cub obeyed. Ilara attempted to follow. But suddenly dizziness overwhelmed her. The world tilted. Her legs failed. Everything hurt. Everything. She stumbled through the doorway moments before part of the roof collapsed behind her. Rain struck her face. Cold and distant. Somewhere nearby Finn was calling her name. But his voice sounded far away now. Very far away. The storm continued. Yet she barely heard it. Her strength was gone. Completely gone. The child was safe. That thought brought peace. A strange peacefulness. The kind that arrives when nothing remains to give. Finn knelt beside her. Tears streaming down his face. Stay with me. Please. Ilara wanted to answer. Wanted to reassure him. Wanted to smile. But darkness pulled at her gently. Like deep water. The last thing she felt was the small cub gripping her hand. Refusing to let go. Then her eyes slowly closed. And beneath the endless storm. With the child she had saved crying beside her. Ilara slipped into silence, unaware that help was finally on its way, and unaware that before this night ended, the Alpha King himself would learn the truth about the woman everyone else had failed to see. The storm finally began to weaken during the darkest hours of the night, not because it had exhausted its anger, but because nature had already taken everything it wanted. Broken trees covered the forest. Flooded paths disappeared beneath mud. Entire sections of the territory looked unfamiliar, as though the land itself had changed. Near the ruins of the cabin, a small cub refused to leave. Finn remained beside Ilara. His small hands clung tightly to hers. Rain still fell around them, cold drops sliding through his fur. Yet he did not move. He could not. Fear had rooted him to that place. Every few moments he leaned closer, listening for her breathing, searching for proof that she was still there. "Please wake up." His voice trembled. "Please, you promised." No answer came, only the fading sound of distant thunder. Then suddenly voices echoed through the forest. Guards, search teams, wolves moving through the darkness carrying lanterns. Finn immediately stood. "Over here." His cry cut through the night. "Over here." Several figures rushed forward. Lantern lights swept across the ruined cabin, across the fallen tree, across Ilara's motionless form. Shock appeared on every face. One guard dropped to his knees beside her. Another quickly examined her injuries. "What happened here?" Finn struggled to answer. Tears filled his eyes again. "She saved me." The words came out broken. "She saved everyone." The guards exchanged glances. Confusion, concern, disbelief. Before anyone could ask another question, a new presence arrived. The atmosphere changed instantly, not because anyone ordered silence, because respect naturally followed him. The Alpha King stepped into the clearing. Rain dripped from his dark cloak. His expression remained calm, yet his eyes immediately found Ilara, the injured woman lying in the mud. For a long moment he simply looked at her. The same woman who had quietly returned the pendant. The same woman everyone else overlooked. The same woman now broken and unconscious beside a destroyed cabin. "What happened?" His voice remained steady. Finn wiped his eyes. "She saved me. Then another child. Then me again. Nobody came. But she came." The Alpha King's gaze shifted toward the cub, and something in his expression changed. Not dramatically, not visibly to everyone, but enough. Enough for those who knew him. The guard beside Ilara spoke carefully. "Her injuries are serious. Exhaustion. Possible internal damage." She pushed herself far beyond her limits. The Alpha King knelt beside her. Mud soaked the edge of his cloak. He did not seem to notice. His attention remained entirely on her. Carefully he checked her pulse. Weak, but present. Relief flickered briefly across his face. "Take her to the healing house immediately." His voice left no room for argument. Within moments wolves were preparing a stretcher. Finn refused to let go of Ilara's hand. The healers tried gently. The guards tried patiently. Nothing worked. The cub shook his head fiercely. "I'm staying with her." The Alpha King watched him quietly, then nodded. "Let him stay." The journey through the forest felt endless. Lanterns moved through darkness, their warm light dancing across wet trees. Rain continued falling, softer now, almost gentle, as if the storm itself regretted what it had done. Finn walked beside the stretcher every step of the way, never once releasing her hand. The Alpha King followed close behind, silent, thoughtful, observing everything. When they finally reached the healing house, the elderly healer was already waiting. She had spent decades treating injuries, illnesses, and grief. Few things surprised her anymore. Yet the moment she saw Ilara, her eyes narrowed. "This child again." The healer whispered softly. The Alpha King heard. "You know her?" The old woman nodded. "Better than most. She has spent years helping others while receiving little in return. Many survived difficult winters because of her. Most never realized it. The Alpha King remained silent. The healer carefully examined Ilara. Minutes passed, and more. The room grew quiet. Finally she stepped back. She will survive. Relief spread through the room instantly. But recovery will take time. Her body has been carrying exhaustion for far longer than this storm. She has been surviving on far too little for far too long. The words settled heavily between them. The Alpha King glanced toward the sleeping woman. Something about those words troubled him. Not because he doubted them, because he believed them. As dawn approached, witnesses slowly began arriving. One after another. Stories emerged. Small pieces of truth gathering together. A hunter described finding the child trapped beneath the fallen branch. A villager confirmed seeing Ilara running into the storm alone. Another admitted watching her help elderly pack members for years. The stories continued. Different voices, different memories, yet they all pointed toward the same truth. Ilara consistently chose others. Again, and again, and again. The Alpha King listened to every word. Never interrupting. Never rushing anyone. The more he learned, the quieter he became. By midday the healer approached him. There is something else you should know. He looked toward her. Speak freely. The old woman folded her hands. Many people believed she returned your pendant because she wanted recognition. I never believed that. The Alpha King's expression remained unchanged. Neither did I. The healer smiled slightly. But because she almost did not return it. Not out of greed. Out of desperation. She had every reason to keep it. And still she chose honesty. The Alpha King lowered his gaze briefly. Toward the silver pendant resting safely around his neck once again. A memory surfaced. A memory he rarely visited. His younger sister laughing beneath spring sunlight. Her hands placing the pendant into his palm. Keep this, so you never forget me. Years had passed since her death. Yet her voice remained clear. The pendant was never about authority. Never about status. It was the last gift she had given him. The final piece of her he could still touch. That was why losing it had hurt. And why getting it back meant more than anyone realized. Especially from someone who owed him nothing. Later that evening Ilara finally woke. Slowly, painfully. Her eyes opened to unfamiliar surroundings. Warm blankets, soft light, the scent of healing herbs. For several moments confusion clouded her thoughts. Then memory returned. The storm. Cabin. Finn. Immediately she tried to sit up. Pain stopped her. Easy now. The healer's gentle voice reached her first. You are safe. Ilara blinked slowly. Finn. The door opened before anyone could answer. The cub rushed inside. His face lit up instantly. You are awake. Relief flooded his voice. Ilara smiled weakly. You are all right. Finn nodded rapidly. Because of you. The child wrapped his arms carefully around her. Not wanting to hurt her. Just wanting reassurance that she was truly there. Tears filled his eyes again. I thought you were gone. Ilara rested a hand gently against his hair. I am still here. The room fell quiet. Warm. Comfortable. Peaceful. Then another figure appeared at the doorway. The Alpha King. Finn immediately stepped aside. Ilara tried once more to sit upright. You do not need to do that. His voice remained calm. Rest. She looked at him uncertainly. For a moment neither spoke. Then the Alpha King slowly removed the pendant from around his neck. The silver chain caught the light. Ilara recognized it immediately. You returned something very important to me, he said softly. More important than most people know. She lowered her eyes. Anyone would have done the same. The Alpha King shook his head. Well, not anyone. Silence followed. Not uncomfortable silence. Thoughtful silence. The kind that carried meaning. You protected a child. You risked your life for strangers. And you expected nothing in return. His gaze remained steady. I know the truth now. Ilara felt strangely exposed. Not because he was judging her. Because he was seeing her. Perhaps for the first time in years someone was truly seeing her. And she did not know what to do with that feeling. The Alpha King continued. There are people in this territory who forgot your worth. That mistake ends now. Elara looked up, surprised. He offered no dramatic speech. No grand promise. Only sincerity. Simple and direct. You will recover here under my protection. No one will trouble you. No one will question your character. Not again. Emotion tightened her throat unexpectedly. The question escaped before she could stop it. The Alpha King answered immediately. Because it is the right thing to do. The words struck her harder than she expected. For years she had been the one making difficult choices because they were right. Now someone else was choosing the same path. For her. Outside the healing house, whispers were already spreading through the territory. The Alpha King had personally ordered her protection. The Alpha King had remained at the healing house. The Alpha King had listened to witnesses himself. The entire pack was talking. Confused, curious, surprised. Inside, however, none of that mattered. Elara sat quietly beside the cub she had saved, while across the room stood the Alpha King who had finally learned who she truly was. No declarations had been made. No promises spoken. Yet something important had begun. Not romance. Not destiny. Trust. A fragile bridge built from actions instead of words. And as evening sunlight slowly filled the room through the windows, neither of them realized how much that quiet bridge would soon change all of their lives forever. Recovery did not arrive all at once. Came slowly. Like the first light of morning spreading across a dark valley. One small step at a time. One quiet breath after another. For the first few days, Elara rarely left her bed. Her body carried the cost of everything she had endured. The storm. Injuries. The exhaustion she had ignored for years. Now there was no hiding from it. The healer made certain of that. Each morning she arrived with herbs and warm tea. Each evening she checked every wound again. And every time Elara tried to help with something, the old healer narrowed her eyes. Rest. That is your only job. Elara always smiled politely. Then attempted to help anyway. The healer never allowed it. For the first time in many years, someone was forcing her to receive care instead of giving it. Strangely enough, that felt harder than any injury. Receiving kindness was unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable. She did not know where to place it inside her heart. Years of loneliness had taught her to expect little, to need little, to survive quietly. Now people were bringing meals, fresh blankets, book, medicine. And every act left her feeling confused. One afternoon she stared at a bowl of hot soup for nearly a minute. Finn noticed immediately. Why are you looking at it like that? Elara smiled softly. Because someone made it for me. The cub blinked. People make food for each other all the time. Yes, they do. Then why are you surprised? She hesitated, searching for an answer. Because it has been a very long time. Finn looked thoughtful. Then he pushed his own piece of bread toward her. You can have this too. The simple gesture nearly made her cry. Not because of the bread. Because of the child offering it. Kindness had a strange way of returning. Sometimes from the smallest hands. Days passed. The injuries slowly healed. Color returned to her face. Strength returned to her movements. The healing house no longer felt like a place of sickness. It began feeling like a temporary home, especially because Finn was always there. The cub seemed determined never to leave her side. If she sat near a window, Finn appeared. If she walked through the garden, Finn followed. She read a book. Finn somehow found a chair nearby. One afternoon she finally laughed. A genuine laugh. The first in a very long time. Finn immediately pointed toward her. You did it again. Did what? That sound. The happy one. Elara covered her mouth. The cub grinned proudly. You should do it more. His words stayed with her long after he ran off to chase butterflies across the garden. You should do it more. Such a simple sentence. Yet she realized she could barely remember the last time happiness had felt natural. Perhaps that was changing. Slowly, carefully, but changing nonetheless. The Alpha King visited often. Not every hour. Not every day. Just enough. Never enough to feel overwhelming. Never so little that it seemed distant. His presence remained calm, steady, predictable. Sometimes he brought reports from the territory. Sometimes books from the castle library. Sometimes nothing at all. Occasionally he simply sat nearby and shared the silence. Ilara found herself appreciating those moments more than she expected. There was no pressure inside them. No expectation. No hidden purpose. Only peace. One evening they sat beneath an old tree in the healing garden. Golden sunlight filtered through the leaves. Birds moved between branches overhead. Finn was nearby attempting to teach a squirrel how to follow commands. The squirrel showed absolutely no interest. The Alpha King watched the scene quietly. He seems happier. Ilara followed his gaze. Oh, do you? The words escaped before she could stop them. For a brief moment surprise crossed his face. Then a faint smile appeared. Perhaps. The silence returned. Comfortable. Easy. Not empty. The Alpha King finally spoke. Finn reminds me that not everything requires strength. Ilara looked toward him. What do you mean? His eyes remained on the child. When leaders carry responsibility for a long time, they begin measuring every decision by necessity. Every action becomes practical, useful, important. Finn reminds me that joy has value too. Ilara considered those words, then nodded. I think I understand. Their eyes met briefly. Something warm passed between them. Not romance. Not yet. Something quieter. Recognition. Two people beginning to understand each other. Neither rushed it. Neither named it. Neither needed to. As weeks continued passing, another change slowly spread through the territory. People started seeing Ilara differently. Not because the Alpha King protected her. Because stories continued surfacing. Stories nobody had bothered sharing before. An elderly widow told others about years of hidden assistance. Hunters spoke about supplies mysteriously appearing during difficult winters. Families remembered moments when Ilara had helped without seeking credit. Piece by piece the truth emerged. She had always been kind. People simply failed to notice. Now they noticed. One morning while walking through the village, she experienced something strange. A woman called her name. Not because she needed something. Not because she required help. Just to say hello. The moment felt almost unreal. Later a baker handed her fresh bread. A group of children waved excitedly as she passed. Small things. Very small things. Yet each one felt significant. Because for years those moments had belonged to someone else. Never her. Finn noticed the difference immediately. I told you. People like you. Ilara laughed softly. You seem very certain. 'Cause good people are easy to like. The confidence in his answer left her speechless. Children often carried wisdom adults complicated unnecessarily. One evening rain began falling gently outside the healing house. Nothing like the terrible storm from before. Just soft rainfall tapping against windows. The kind of weather that invited quiet conversation. Ilara sat beside the fire reading. Finn rested nearby drawing crooked wolves on scraps of paper. The Alpha King entered carrying several documents. Immediately Finn groaned dramatically. More work. The Alpha King looked amused. Unfortunately, yes. That sounds terrible. It often is. Finn shook his head sadly. You should stop being Alpha for one day. The room fell silent. Ilara nearly laughed. The Alpha King raised an eyebrow. Just one day. Finn continued confidently. Then you can eat sweets and take naps. A thoughtful suggestion. Thank you. You are welcome. The conversation ended so seriously that Ilara finally burst into laughter. Finn joined her instantly. Even the Alpha King smiled. For a few precious moments the room felt less like a healing house. And more like something else. Something warmer. Something closer to family. The realization startled Ilara. Family. The word carried both comfort and pain. She had spent years believing that part of her life was gone forever. Yet lately she found herself imagining impossible things. Shared meals. Laughter. Belonging. People waiting for her return. The thoughts frightened her. Because hope could be dangerous. Hope created expectations. Expectations created disappointment. That lesson had been learned many times. One night she stood alone beneath the stars. The territory stretched peacefully before her. Moonlight covered the forest in silver light. Footsteps approached quietly. The Alpha King, unable to sleep, gasped, "Little." He joined her beside the garden wall. Neither spoke immediately. The night itself seemed enough. Eventually Elara broke the silence. "Why are you always patient with me?" The question surprised even her. The Alpha King thought carefully before answering. "Because patience was given to me when I needed it most." His gaze remained fixed on the horizon. "Someone once believed I would heal even when I could not see it myself. I owe that gift forward." The honesty in his voice touched her deeply. For years she had expected people to demand things, pressure, judge. Yet this man never did. He listened, waited, respected. The difference mattered more than he probably realized. A cool breeze moved through the garden. The Alpha King turned toward her. "You never have to become someone else here." The words landed softly, yet their impact was enormous. Because her entire life had felt like an attempt to earn acceptance. To become useful enough, helpful enough, quiet enough, strong enough. Now someone was telling her she could simply exist, and that would be enough. Emotion tightened her throat. "Thank you." The Alpha King nodded once. Nothing more. He never demanded explanations. Never pushed further. That was another reason trust continued growing. Weeks later Elara finally left the healing house completely. Her recovery had progressed far enough. The territory felt different now. Brighter somehow. More welcoming. Finn practically celebrated the occasion. He spent the entire day showing her places she already knew. As if she were seeing them for the first time. Perhaps she was. Because she was no longer walking through them alone. That evening all three shared dinner in the castle garden. Nothing formal. Nothing grand. Just food, conversation, and laughter. The sun slowly disappeared behind distant hills. Golden light painted the world in warm colors. Finn sat between them happily telling stories that changed slightly each time he repeated them. Neither adult corrected him. Some stories deserved to remain imperfect. As darkness settled across the territory, Elara watched the child laughing, then looked toward the Alpha King. For the first time in years her heart felt lighter. Not healed completely, but healing. Not fearless, but hopeful. And somewhere deep inside she began wondering whether belonging might actually be possible. Not because anyone promised it. Because every day seemed to bring another reason to believe. And though neither she nor the Alpha King spoke about the future, both felt it approaching quietly. Like dawn waiting just beyond the horizon, bringing with it a choice that would soon change everything once again. Autumn arrived quietly across the territory. The forests turned gold. The mornings carried a gentle chill. And the mountains stood beneath clear skies that seemed endless. Life continued moving forward. Not in dramatic leaps, but in small meaningful steps. The kind that often mattered most. Elara had begun helping at the healing house again. Not because she needed to prove herself. Not because anyone expected it. Simply because helping others remained part of who she was. The difference now was that she no longer carried everything alone. When the day ended people thanked her. When she was tired someone noticed. When she disappeared for a few hours someone asked if she was all right. Simple things. Ordinary things. Yet to Elara they felt extraordinary. Because she had spent so much of her life believing she could vanish and nobody would realize she was gone. Now that belief was slowly fading. Like mist beneath sunlight. One afternoon she sat beneath an old oak tree near the castle gardens. A basket of herbs rested beside her. The breeze moved gently through the branches overhead. Nearby Finn chased falling leaves as though they were rare treasures escaping into the wind. Every few moments he laughed. And every time he laughed Elara found herself smiling. The sound carried happiness so naturally. The Alpha King appeared a short while later. His steps calm as always. Never hurried. never demanding attention. Finn spotted him first, immediately abandoning the leaves. "You're late." The Alpha King raised an eyebrow. "Late for what?" "For absolutely nothing." The cub nodded seriously. "Exactly." The Alpha King looked thoughtful. "That sounds important." "Is." Finn crossed his arms proudly. Ilara laughed. The sound felt easier now. Natural. The Alpha King sat beside her beneath the tree. For a while they simply watched the child running through the grass. The silence between them had changed over time. Months ago it carried uncertainty. Now it carried comfort. Neither felt pressure to fill every quiet moment with words. Eventually the Alpha King spoke. "The council met this morning." Ilara glanced toward him. "Several leaders have been discussing the future of the territory." She listened carefully, waiting. "There are changes coming. New responsibilities. New opportunities." His tone remained calm. Yet something beneath the words suggested deeper meaning. Ilara felt curiosity stir inside her. The Alpha King looked toward the horizon, then finally continued. "There is something I would like to ask you." Her heartbeat quickened slightly. Not from fear. From uncertainty. The Alpha King rarely spoke without purpose. "I am listening." His gaze met hers. Direct, steady, respectful. Just as it always had been. The territory needs people who understand compassion. People who place others before themselves. People willing to listen. You have done those things for years. Long before anyone noticed. Ilara remained silent. The Alpha King continued. "I would like you to join my leadership circle. Not as an assistant. Not as a servant. As an equal voice." The words settled between them. Unexpected. Powerful. Almost impossible. For several moments Ilara could not speak. Her entire life she had stood outside important conversations. Outside decisions. Outside opportunities. Now she was being invited inside. Not because of status. Not because of politics. Because someone genuinely believed her perspective mattered. The Alpha King watched her carefully. "Take your time. There is no rush. No pressure. No expectation. The decision belongs entirely to you." Those words mattered as much as the offer itself. Because he meant them. She knew he meant them. The choice was truly hers. No hidden obligation. No invisible debt. Only trust. That evening Ilara walked alone through the forest. Not because she wanted distance. Because she needed clarity. Golden leaves covered the paths. The air smelled of earth and pine. Every step carried memories. The stream where she found the pendant. The road where people once ignored her. The storm that nearly claimed her life. The healing house. The garden. Finn. The Alpha King. So much had changed. Yet one question remained. Could she truly accept belonging? Not temporary acceptance. Not conditional approval. Real belonging. The thought frightened her more than loneliness ever had. Because loneliness was familiar. Belonging required courage. Belonging meant trusting that people would stay. The sun began sinking lower. Shadows stretched across the forest floor. And suddenly she heard footsteps behind her. Light footsteps. Small footsteps. "Finn." She smiled before turning. "You followed me." "Maybe." The cub replied. "Maybe not." Ilara laughed softly. Finn moved beside her. For a while neither spoke. Then the child looked up. "Are you worried?" "Little." "Wait." Then he nodded. "I know that feeling." She looked down at him. "You do." The cub kicked a leaf along the path. "When you found me I thought you would leave. Everybody leaves eventually." His voice remained calm. Matter of fact. The words carried old pain. The kind children should never have to understand. "But you stayed." He continued. "Even when it was hard. Even when you got hurt. You stayed." Ilara felt emotion tighten her chest. Finn smiled. "Maybe some good things are real." The simplicity of the statement struck her harder than any speech could have. Maybe some good things are real. They continued walking together. The forest glowing beneath evening light. For the first time the fear inside her began to loosen. Not disappear. Just loosen. Enough to breathe. enough to hope. A few days later, the entire territory gathered near the central square. It was not a celebration. Not officially. The Alpha King had called a meeting. Nothing more. At least that was what most people believed. Wolves filled the square. Families, hunters, healers, elders, children. Voices drifted through the air. Curiosity growing with every passing minute. Elara stood near the front, uncertain. Finn remained beside her, practically vibrating with excitement. The Alpha King stepped forward. The crowd gradually fell silent. His gaze moved across the gathered territory, then finally settled on Elara. Months ago, he began. Something valuable was returned to me. Many believed that was the important part of the story. A faint murmur moved through the crowd. The Alpha King continued. They were wrong. Complete silence followed. The valuable thing was never the pendant. The valuable thing was the person who returned it. Elara immediately lowered her eyes, uncomfortable with attention, yet unable to escape it. The Alpha King's voice remained calm, strong, certain. For years this territory benefited from kindness it failed to acknowledge. For years compassion existed quietly while many of us looked elsewhere. That mistake belongs to all of us, including me. The crowd listened carefully. No one interrupted. No one looked away. The Alpha King turned toward Elara. You taught this territory something important. That strength is not measured by power. That leadership begins with service. That kindness remains valuable even when nobody is watching. Emotion filled the square. Not dramatic emotion. Something softer. Something deeper. Respect. Real respect. The Alpha King stepped closer, then spoke words that changed everything. I have invited Elara to join my leadership circle. A wave of surprise moved through the crowd. But before anyone could react further, he continued. The decision, however, belongs entirely to her. The entire territory became silent. Every eye turned toward Elara. For a brief moment fear returned. The old fear. The familiar fear. The fear of standing alone. Then she felt a small hand slip into hers. Finn. The cub looked up at her, smiling. And suddenly she realized something. She was not alone anymore. Not here. Not now. Perhaps not ever again. Elara slowly lifted her head. She looked at the crowd. The people who once overlooked her. The people who now saw her. Then she looked toward the Alpha King. The man who never demanded trust. Who earned it patiently. Day by day. Choice by choice. Finally she spoke. When I was younger, I spent a long time hoping someone would choose me. The crowd listened closely. Eventually I stopped hoping. Because hoping hurt. Her voice remained steady. But today I understand something different. Belonging is not something given. It is something accepted. Emotion shimmered across countless faces, including the Alpha King's. Elara smiled softly, then continued. So yes, accept. Cheers erupted instantly. Warm, joyful, heartfelt. Yet the loudest voice belonged to Finn. The cub practically launched himself at her. His laughter echoed through the square. Elara held him tightly. And for the first time in many years happiness arrived without fear following behind it. As evening settled across the territory, a gathering formed. Nothing grand. Nothing formal. Families shared food. Children played. Music drifted through the air. The atmosphere felt peaceful, earned, real. Elara stood near the edge of the celebration watching the sunset paint the sky in gold and crimson. The Alpha King joined her quietly. Neither spoke immediately. The moment itself felt complete. Eventually he looked toward her. Any regrets? He smiled. None. The answer came easily. Because it was true. The Alpha King nodded. Then looked toward Finn, who was attempting to teach 3 other children a game. He had clearly invented moments earlier. He seems happy. He is. Elara replied. Then after a brief pause she added. So am I. The Alpha King smiled. And together they watched the final sunlight disappear beyond the mountains. Not as strangers. Not as lonely souls searching for a place in the world. But as people who had found something rare. trust, family, belonging. The future remained unwritten. Challenges would come. Seasons would change. Life would continue. Yet for the first time none of that felt frightening. Because the woman who had once been invisible was invisible no longer. She was seen. She was valued. She was wanted. And beneath a sky full of stars, surrounded by people who chose her just as she chose them, Ilara finally understood the truth her heart had been searching for all along. Some good things are real. And sometimes, when kindness refuses to die, those good things find their way home.